Goedenavond, good evening all. Good evening, fellow South Africans and citizens of the world, and good to see you all here. Glenn, if you wouldn't mind just doing the cut and paste, and Jocko, if you could do that too, that'd be fantastic, and we'll take the questions later. Hi Ria, how are you? And hi to everybody else. We're going to have a cracker of an evening, I can tell you. Now, if you look behind me, that is Montevideo, which is the capital of Uruguay. And that's the subject tonight. We're meeting a couple of very, very interesting people, and it's going to be a very interesting discussion. Let me tell you a bit about Uruguay. Uruguay is a country located in South America that shares its borders with Argentina and Brazil. And I'll just show you exactly where it is. Okay, there you go. South America, Brazil, Argentina, there's Uruguay. The country is the second smallest in South America after Suriname, with a land area of 68,000 square miles. And there you can see it, Uruguay. Uruguay has a population of 3.3 million people. About 1.4 million of the citizens live within its capital of Montevideo and its surrounding areas. Uruguay is known as being one of South Africa's most economically developed countries or nations. Now, people who could really benefit from this discussion tonight, and I get so many emails from people who have children, and they say they're desperate to leave South Africa, but they cannot leave because they've got elderly parents and they just cannot leave them behind. Well, you now have an option. Uruguay offers you a temporary refuge for your entire family because age does not matter. Now, one of the people we're going to be meeting tonight is Colette de Villiers, and she moved to Uruguay about 6 to 8 months ago. And she writes, like many South Africans, we were too old, too poor, and too underqualified for many of the more traditional countries, and we're very happy to come across Uruguay in South America, to which we have successfully relocated in February this year. It is a viable option for many South Africans as the process is simple and cheap, and Uruguay is the only country in the world where the Constitution guarantees the right of people to immigrate to it. Further, the potential of future conflict is low, as the population is mainly European, and the people are very welcoming to immigrants, since they are aware of their own immigrant roots. All right, now with Colette is going to be Gonzalo Gomez, who's an immigration expert who lives in Uruguay. And he provides the following services, and I've put his website links down below this video and his direct email address. So if you want to contact him and discuss things with him, feel free to do that. But Gonzalo Gomez provides legal permanent residency applications, citizenship and Uruguay passport. He can set up a business, bank account, legal and tax advice, health insurance, and gun permits. So obviously you can have guns in Uruguay. All right, let me get Colette and Gonzalo on, and we'll have a chat. Here we go. Hi, Gonzalo.
Hello, Scott. How are you?
Good, thank you. Hi, Colette. Good to see you.
Hi, hello.
Do you want to say hello to about 250 people watching right now?
Yes, we'd like to say hello to everybody and also to all our family and friends, either they're watching now or I'm sure they will at some point as well. And we're saying hello to all you guys, and for those of you that are in South Africa, you've got our deepest sympathy, and we hope that this video will help you a little bit.
Fantastic. Now, Colette, you have just recently moved to Uruguay from South Africa. So tell me about what has changed in your life now that you're living in Uruguay.
We left South Africa in February, and we were not people, we didn't ever think we'd actually leave because it seemed quite impossible, and we were sort of hoping things would improve. And then when governmental policies changed, and we just realized we've got to get out of the country because we've got an 11-year-old son and we're also worried about his future.
Right.
And so often in the middle of the night I'd wake up in South Africa with terrible panic attacks because you don't know what's on the horizon, and the news things, the latest hate speeches and racist attacks really stressed us out quite a bit.
I bet.
So what has changed in my life? Well, I'm actually able to enjoy life. I sleep at night. We're happy. We're not stressed. And all I want to say to everybody out there is that there's a whole world out there. You know, when you're in South Africa, you think that this is how the whole world is: no work, stress and problems. But South Africa is a place on its own. The rest of the world, or most of it surely, is actually quite a nice place to be in. And we've got such a quality of life. It's just a 180-degree turnaround from when we were in South Africa. And it's the best, maybe one of the most difficult things we did was to leave, but definitely the best thing we did.
Fantastic. And I just made the point that for all those families who've got young children or even teenage children and they can't leave because of elderly parents, Uruguay is certainly an option for them, because the whole family could go there, couldn't they?
Yes.
Yeah, not only people who are retired move to Uruguay, young couples, people in their early 20s, young families with kids, and they find peace, they find it comfortable, and they feel at home.
Right.
So it's not only for people who are retired who choose to live in Uruguay.
And Gonzalo, I have to tell you, the ladies on my channel think you're a dashing young man, by the way.
Thank you.
Okay, now Gonzalo, over to you. Tell us who you are, what you do.
Excellent, thank you. I'm a relocation specialist. I've been doing relocation for more than 12 years. And about a year ago, my partner, Mrs. Macarena Castells, we decided to join forces and we work together so we can provide more services. We can share our expertise, and our joint forces have proved to work out well. And we provide all the services to those expats, to those foreigners who have decided to move to Uruguay. And we have a team, a big team that consists of a CPA, an English-speaking CPA, that can provide advice on, business, taxing, and all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. We have an English-speaking lawyer. We have an English-speaking notary. We have a team of translators, English, German, French, Portuguese, all kinds of translators. And Macarena and I handle all the residency stuff for those expats coming to Uruguay and applying for residency, and all the services that we provide. By the way, I will tell you what we provide. It's not only residency, the residency process. We help people open a bank account, set up a business, get health insurance. We help them with legal and all legal advice. We help them find, we don't do real estate, but we help them find, or we recommend proper and honest, reliable agents. And one of the most important things in this world, that after you live in Uruguay and you become a resident, you can become a Uruguayan citizen and have Uruguay passport.
Right.
And these days that means a lot, to have a second citizenship and have the chance of having Uruguay passport, which allows you to go to more than 190 countries visa-free. Fantastic. You can go to Europe, you can go to many places in the world without a visa. So Uruguay passport is really worth a lot. And that's one of the major goals, or probably the biggest goal behind residency, and of course living in Uruguay. People are really looking into alternative options. And Uruguay citizenship is really an important thing.
Yeah. Now, one of the great attractions about using your business is that you would take them through the whole process from A to Z of the actual getting residency in Uruguay.
That's correct. We practically walk hand to hand with our clients. They're never left alone. Everything we do, we are with them. We accompany them to all government and non-government places. We help them through the interview. We do the follow-up until the end. We try to find solutions to issues that come up. Everybody's application, everybody's life is different.
Yeah.
So every single process has to be faced and channeled in one way.
Right.
And you don't have the same method of filing for everyone's application. So you have to be resourceful, find solutions to your clients, to the little problems that they bring from their home country. And
yeah.
So, and the way to make sure things happen are done properly. So you have to be there. You have to be present with them. You have to be on top of everything.
Now, you've helped about or over 20 South African families already migrate to Uruguay.
I was a bit short. It looks like to some people I have to record a video to show that I have really helped more than 20 families, and I'm not. I have one here sitting next to me. I will do it with their consent, but we have helped more than 20 families, South African families.
Right.
Yeah, a colleague was asking me, how many Americans have you helped? More than 200 American families we have helped.
Wow.
The thing is, we're talking about hundreds of clients, but just South Africans, more than 20.
Fantastic.
And it's way more than 20.
And now, Colette, you're one of those more than 20 clients or families. Tell us how your experience has been with Gonzalo, with the migration process? I know you sing his praises, so go ahead.
Well, look, I know there's a lot of different ways of doing paperwork. Uruguay, some people think that you can do the whole process on your own, but I've heard from other expats that by the time one's finished with the bureaucracy and the documents and the translations and going up and down, it actually costs more than, and that, someone actually advised me rather use an agent because it costs them more to do it themselves than to use an agent. So obviously, being in South Africa, I was very skeptical of anyone, especially paying someone money over the internet and you don't know if they're a scam artist or not. And so I contacted Gonzalo quite a long time ago. And then I just thought, now I'm sure he's a scam artist. I don't know why. Maybe because he looks very young on his photograph on his website or something. But anyway, so I thought I won't use him, and I was sort of approached other companies that were much more expensive, and subsequently I found that the advice they gave me would have actually been incorrect in certain things, but a lot of expats from other countries recommended Gonzalo, so we were happy to use him based on that. And what we found, you're always worried. It's like if you go to a lawyer and then you're scared every time you speak to the lawyer they're going to send you a bill. Well, Gonzalo is not like that. And just after we got to Uruguay, my husband took ill and he had to go to hospital. And Gonzalo was there. Gonzalo helped us to get onto a private medical aid within a few hours.
Wow.
And there's no charge involved for that at all. So, Gonzalo's over, and he's sort of a guy to have on your side when you're in a new country, rather than just an immigration agent.
Yeah.
So that's why I sing his praises, because of what I've seen him do for us and also other people.
Well, you told me the story about how Gonzalo actually went to the bedside of one of his clients who was having a baby, and that the nursing staff thought that he was the father. Tell us about that situation, Gonzalo.
Yeah.
Well, you have to be humanitarian. This is not only about work or making money. There are people who come with a story, with a life, with a backpack full of surprises. And we had the case of one of my clients who came to Uruguay, and she was already pregnant. And the truth is, hospitals don't, if you're pregnant or if you're a sick person, we will talk about that, by the way. And the hospitals don't take you. They don't take pregnant women because it's very expensive for them. But we found a way, obviously a legal way, to get her health insurance. And it was a bit awkward in the beginning after, she started seeing the doctors to make arrangements for the delivery, and to see the gynecologist, all the doctor. I mean, I was with her, and she's a single mom, and I was walking next to her. It looked very awkward that people thought I was the father of the child coming, but I was not. I was just, let's say, just a friend. And you have to help people. I try to be on their shoes for 5 minutes. I lived overseas only for 3 months back in 2006, and I felt and I experienced what it is like living in a foreign country.
Yeah.
And so I try to walk the second mile for them to make them feel at home, make them feel more comfortable. And there are things in life that you cannot charge for. You should just do it because you just follow your heart, and you try to help people and make them feel comfortable. And life paid me back 100 times more than in a good way than if I had charged for those services.
Right. Now, we have got a question here which is related to what we're talking about. Madison asks, what are the views in Uruguay immigration on people coming in if they have chronic medical problems?
There are no problems. There are no limitations about coming to Uruguay. If you have any chronic disease, if you have a serious illness, there are ways in which we can help them get the health insurance to be fully covered, in a very inexpensive way. I have clients who came to Uruguay with spina bifida, with mental illnesses, with very chronic, serious disease, and we always find a way to provide health care for them, and to be fully covered in a very inexpensive way. The health system in Uruguay, I don't know if you agree, Colette, it's very good. It's if you get a job or if you set up a business, by default you can access private health care.
Right.
And it's a good quality, no matter how old you are, no matter if you have any pre-existing disease. So you automatically qualify because government subsidize part of your medical expenses.
Now, I've got another question here. In fact, several people are asking, can you take your pets with you when you migrate to Uruguay?
Yes, you can. Yes, you can. It's actually very easy. Or depending on if you're just talking about dogs and cats, you just need a simple statement from your vet in South Africa. You need to give them certain kinds of shots for rabies, worms, and some. It's simple stuff, and a simple statement, just a piece of paper. Once you have it here, you arrive in Uruguay. You just show it to the health authorities, and they clear you in 5 minutes.
Yeah, and we took our 2 mini schnauzers over from South Africa, and we did the process ourselves, which also makes it much cheaper. There's a nice Facebook page called South Africans Immigrating with Pets, and there's a lot of advice on there. But one of the things they do need is to have a Leishmaniasis test. So that's just one thing that we're not familiar with in South Africa. But there was no problem bringing them into the country at all. The nice thing about it, and to show how organized and civilized Uruguay is, obviously our pets had to be microchipped. And once we got here, we asked the vet, now they've been microchipped, how would somebody know it's our dog? So we actually get a pet passport that you get, like an identity card for each pet with your address and their things. So they got their residency even before we got ours.
Fantastic. Now, Jaco has made a statement here. He says Brazil is number 1 on the list of the most violent countries, and South Africa is number 2. So stay away from Brazil. Now, Brazil is one of your neighbors. What is the crime rate like in Uruguay?
Okay, that's a good topic. Crime rate, we have issues in Uruguay. Uruguay is not a perfect country. It's not a perfect place. We have issues. Compared to our neighbor countries such as Brazil and Argentina, this is a super safe place. Privacy is really respected. And we do have issues like it. There's no country in the world that is perfect, I believe. And we have some security problems. Yes, there are break-ins depending where you live, and there are some issues with drugs. We have problems with cocaine, with crack, but that the cheap drugs affect usually the poorest people, and we suffer the consequences of that. But we don't have any violent crime, I would say. You can walk in the streets in most part of Uruguay and you feel safe, and no matter how late it is at night. But I wouldn't say Uruguay. I don't know what you think of it, but you've been here for a while. But I think Uruguay is a very safe country. In South America, by far, we are the safest country. Yes, there's a lot of violence in Brazil. It's very risky. Life means nothing there. Argentina has a lot of issues. That's probably an advantage from being a very small country.
Yeah.
3.3 million people, and so it's easier for the police department to control and attack those problems to find a solution.
Yeah.
And of course, let's say Montevideo, our capital city, you have 1.3 million people, 1.5, something like that. So almost half the population of the country is located in Montevideo. And some neighborhoods of Montevideo are dangerous. Yes, I have to admit.
Well, I have to tell you that there's some parts of Brisbane that are dangerous here in Australia, and in Sydney the same thing, and in Melbourne, Perth. It happens in every city around the world, so that's, just par for the course. Now, we'll get to how much it costs to emigrate to Uruguay in a moment. Audrey's asked that question, but I do want to ask you a bit more about the other areas, like you've mentioned the health system. Now, the problem in South Africa is that all the services are breaking down. Municipalities, the water, sometimes there's no water, no tap water. A lot of the tap water now is undrinkable. They're having power cuts in South Africa. The public hospitals are a complete disgrace. The education system is collapsing in South Africa. And well, we've talked about the crime side. Can you give us a comparison of how things are? And Colette, I'll just put this question to you first about those things. Tell us about how Uruguay, with its services, reflects when you're talking about South Africa.
Okay, well, being used to power cuts in South Africa, yeah, in Uruguay, if the power does go off, it's maybe... Okay, to put it like this, there was a major power cut that Argentina was down, and parts of, or the whole of Uruguay. I think our power was down for 4 hours altogether. So we basically don't have power cuts.
So that's the only time that's happened?
Yeah, and then we had a problem once with our telephone, our ADSL line.
Right.
And it was fixed by that afternoon, so it's quite quick. The services are good. No problem with the water, although out of principle I always use filtered water, just for health's sake. So I don't drink tap water, so I can't tell you.
Yeah,
but it looks clean.
It has chlorine.
Yeah, look, I would always filter my water, but it's not. It always comes out of the tap. As for the medical services, my husband was in hospital. Some good friends of ours took him to hospital on Good Friday night at about 10 o'clock on this long weekend, and he went to the government hospital in this area, and he was there the whole night. They did everything they needed to. They got 3 doctors in so that someone could speak English to him, and they sent him for a CAT scan and all kinds of tests and procedures. And he says what struck him about being in the hospital is that even though it was a Friday night on a long weekend, there were only a few people coming in with some diseases. No accident. I think there was maybe 1 or 2 accidents. No knife and gunshot and things like you'd get in South Africa. So, and that was a government hospital. And then afterwards he joined a private medical aid. But the medical care, I'd say, is very good.
Okay, now... You live in Uruguay now. Could you just walk out of your house any time of the day and just go take your dog for a walk down the street and not worry about being mugged?
Yeah, in fact, I've already been down. Our son was at a party at the shopping centre quite down the road because we don't have a car, so we walk everywhere now. We're on bicycles, but I went to fetch him on my own in the dark, and I never thought twice about it. So I feel safe here. We don't have burglar bars and things. So in Uruguay, there's a lot of holiday accommodations. And so a lot of the towns are empty, or areas are empty. So the main problem one would get, as far as I've heard, is if you have a house in an area with a whole lot of empty houses or unoccupied houses, because then the gangs would tend to target those houses for break-ins and that. So one has to really just look at what area you are in. But I've never felt unsafe. In fact, the thing that I really like about Uruguay as well is the fact that the men around here are real gentlemen. And if you're walking on the road, a car will stop, even though you're blocking traffic and they think you might cross the road or not. They will stop and say to you, no, you must go. So there's a whole lot of respect for you as a pedestrian. Yeah. We've been on a bus and the bus driver's assistant jumped off the bus in front of me just so that he could help me down the step. So you've got this very great respect of life and human decency, much more than I've ever seen.
Fantastic. Now, putting the same question to you.
Well, then going to the health issue, the services from hospitals. We live on the east side of Uruguay. We live in the state of Maldonado, in the city of Punta del Este. We have one public hospital that is run by government. I wouldn't say it's an example of medical treatments or healthcare, but it's decent. It's good enough. But of course, if you can afford to have a private healthcare, yes, you should go for that without thinking twice. The two hospitals that are located in our city, they are expanding their facilities. You've seen the renovations they're going through, and they're not only expanding their facilities, but they are improving their services by acquiring better equipment for different kinds of tests. They have more staff. They look more advanced and very modern.
Yeah.
So the healthcare in Uruguay, I wouldn't say it's the best in the world, but it could be close.
Okay. Now,
and you can also access VIP plans that give you VIP solutions, and you can opt to have treatments in the best hospitals in Brazil or the best hospitals from Argentina. Those VIP plans allow you to have those options. And in regards to the services from the city, from the government, just to give you an example, if the street light stops working, I make a phone call, I call the city, and within 48 hours they come and they change the light bulb. And if I have a neighbor making loud noises at night, I call the city, or they come with the cops to let them respect each other, and respect the nighttime, to sleep, to have rest. And we have issues, but after where I live, I have a dirt road. After we have heavy rains in Uruguay, and the street is in a very bad condition after a big storm. So the next day you have the machines and the trucks from the city fixing the street, and you don't even have to call them. I know this doesn't happen in the entire country, but at least here in the east side, in Maldonado, the services from the city, what they give back to people, you can actually see it.
Right.
Just to add to that, in us, there's big rubbish bins in the road, and you just put your rubbish in the road, and they send a truck once a week to empty the rubbish. But every now and then they bring the truck with the power washer and actually wash the whole bin.
Wow.
So that's the sort of service. And we went once on a nice long walk right down to the point, and they've got these portable toilets, and I was like, we don't really want to go to this toilet. And eventually we thought, well, we now need to go to the toilet. And what we found out is that there's a lady that sits outside the toilet, and after every single person's been in the toilet, she goes in and cleans the whole toilet. So that is the level of service that we get here. It's just clean and well organized and well run.
Fantastic. Now, this is really a question for you again, Colette. Young families who come over from South Africa and they settle in Uruguay, would their kids be able to go to the local park unattended and go and kick a ball and do what they like to do?
Well, I actually just had my son at our local park this morning, and I was just telling Gonzalo how very nice the local park is. It's free, the whole place.
Yeah.
There's a place for skateboarding and a rink for roller skating and every kind of equipment and contraction any child could want, and it's all for free. It's very well supported. In fact, we were just saying how family orientated the society here is, because you'll see old people on skateboards and families and small children. And I was just telling Gonzalo as well that it's so nice because I can just take my son and he can fit in with the community and make friends and play, and it's available anytime that we want. So yes, it's very nice. There's a lot of free facilities also again provided by the city.
Fantastic. Now, one of the questions I've got here, which is really quite an important one for people migrating, Callie asked, are there English schools for kids of all ages? Because obviously when you arrive in Uruguay, you don't speak Spanish.
The public schools, public education has English as a subject, so they don't speak English only during the time of the subject. But then I would say all or the majority of the private schools are bilingual. Some schools have the morning shift in English and the afternoon shift in Spanish, so schools are bilingual. But you pay for that. I mean, it's not public.
Yeah.
And you have these days a lot of foreign teachers that not only teach English, they teach math, history, biology in English.
Right.
And your son, he goes to a bilingual school.
Yeah, so just to describe the school compared to South Africa, apparently I believe the public schools are only morning only or afternoon only. Our son's in a private school, and in the afternoon it's, in the morning all the lessons are given in Spanish, and in the afternoon everything's in English. So what that means, firstly, is that all the children are bilingual. Mm-hmm. So we were actually very worried about the impact of our son, because he's now in grade 5, suddenly being put into a Spanish school. But everyone was so helpful and nice, and all the children help him in class as well. So he started speaking Spanish now, just from being surrounded by Spanish. But I've actually had to ask the school to please, in Spanish time, please make everyone speak to him in Spanish, because they're so helpful that he's not learning Spanish. But the school is excellent. He goes the school day starts from 8:30 until 5:30 or 4:45. And it seems long, but there's actually a 2-hour built-in break and 2 breaks, and then more than an hour at lunchtime. So they have a lot of time to play. And he just absolutely enjoys school. He's very sorry if he's ever sick and he has to miss it. So of all the things that worried us was the schooling, but he's fitted in so happy. He's extremely happy here. There's no bullying, nothing like that at school. And also, just to show again how organized things are here, the school has a medical aid. So if there's any kind of a incident, like a child fell or something, they send the ambulance with the doctor and a nurse to just come and check that the child is okay.
Fantastic. Now, we got a few people who are asking the same question, so I'm going to give that priority. And Willie and Bookworm have both asked, how long does the process take to go over?
You mean the residency process?
Yes, the migration process, from the time they actually contact you and the time they leave.
Okay. People, I'll tell you usually what happens. People contact us and they ask questions. We get ready. We make a plan. We let them know what documents are required for residency. They get them, and
what documents are required? Just so if people are interested, they can start looking at putting those together.
They need a birth certificate. If they are married, a marriage certificate. Both those documents have to be apostilled, as well as the police report. Those are the documents that come from South Africa that have to be apostilled. The police report, it's only valid for 6 months. So birth and marriage certificate don't expire, but the police report, so if you get the police report today and you come in 8 months, the police report you bring will be obsolete, will be expired, so it won't work. But if when you come to Uruguay, your police report was 5 months old, then it won't expire because you have the police report in your hand, and there's no chance you could have committed a crime because you're in Uruguay. Back in South Africa, you can commit a crime. So the report you have, you will honor it, even if it's more than 6 months old. And so let's go back to the documents that require birth and marriage certificates, apostille, police report. The police reports are only required for adults over 18. Then proof of income, and preferably the proof of income, if it's foreign income, that document should be certified by a notary and apostille. Then a medical statement, especially for female applicants, they require a pap smear and a mammogram. So any pap smear mammogram the women have been through in the past 18 months, they will honor that here, and they don't have to go through that again. And if they bring kids, and their kids need to go to school, preferably they should bring the list of subjects, a letter from the school, the list of, with a list of subjects they coursed and they grades and all of that, and those documents should be apostilled. That's not really required for residency, but it will help them when they need to enroll their child in a new school. And what else am I missing?
What I just want to mention, one Arkansas fix, is that the birth and marriage certificates have to be unabridged. In other words, when you get married, that marriage certificate is not sufficient. It's got to show a lot more details. So you need unabridged certificates, unabridged birth certificate with your parents' details and that can actually take quite a while to apply for in South Africa. So it's a good idea, even if you're not thinking of leaving at all, just to start applying for these documents, because if you want to leave, it can take you a long time, up to a year to get them.
Right. I think that answers your question, Crazy.
Let me add one more thing, Scott. Once you have all the documents in place and you're ready, you are in Uruguay. People have to be present in Uruguay to submit, to apply for residency. We walk them, we make the interview at the immigration office, and that's when the process starts, and they're no longer tourists. They become residents in process, so they can stay in the country unlimited. They can stay here forever. Usually, to get the permanent status granted, it usually takes about from 12 to 18 months. But it could take, if we do things right from the beginning, if we submit all the documents, it takes about a year to become a permanent resident. And while they're in the process of residency, immigration authorities will pay attention on how long the applicant stays in the country. So if you apply for residency now and you go back to South Africa and you stay there for 6 months, it will look very awkward for them that you don't really want it, or if you want it, you don't qualify. So yesterday you asked me about if there are any rejections when you apply for residency. If you submit all the required documents,
right,
and if you do everything right from the beginning, there's no rejection rate. Your residency will not be rejected, will not be canceled. And let me add one more little thing to this topic, is that people can file residency through the EFS system, which is Express Filing System.
Right.
That means that you can come to Uruguay tomorrow, and with your passport and a vaccination statement and a couple of pictures and paying the government fees, you can apply for residency. And you can ask me, oh, you don't have the police report and birth certificate and you don't have the proof of income. You are supposed to bring those documents within 6 months, and they let you get the process started. So if you come to Uruguay and you don't have a proof of income, you don't have income, and you need to get a job or you plan to set up a business, the express filing system will allow you to start residency, have a local ID, which will make things easier in many ways. And once you get a job or you set up a business and you have a real steady income, that's what you show as the proof of income for immigration authorities. Right. So the process is flexible, and if you know how to do things, it will just work out. 100% success rate, I would say.
So really, it's the applicant getting the documents together that's going to cause a delay, as opposed to actually the process in Uruguay.
Well, they have to do their homework back in South Africa.
Yeah.
They have to do their part, and then they bring the documents, and we take care of the rest. We do the proper registrations and translations. We get the documents certified, verified, and we do all the work. The applicant has to go to immigration only twice for the actual interview and to sign the documents, and then they have to be with us when they do the Uruguayan ID, because they take a picture and they do their own thumbprints. Right. Then we handle the rest. They just sit at home or they stay working wherever they are. We do everything on their behalf.
Okay. Now, a question that's obviously on everybody's mind here is, what are the costs? Let's say I have a family of 4, 2 little kids, and I'm married, and I contact you and say, Gonzalo, we want to look at migrating to Uruguay. Now, give us the cost for an individual and then a cost for a family of 4 as an example. and then tell us what you do as part of the process to ensure that people can migrate to Uruguay. And I've got to tell everybody in the side chat here that Gonzalo has never had one of their migrants sent out of the country, and he's got a 100% success rate. Over to you, Gonzalo.
Okay, so talking about cost, for a single applicant, we charge $1,800. That's on our fees plus a $700 for all the expenses. So that's a $2,500 for a single applicant.
So that's about 30,000 rand.
I would have to get a calculator right now. But,
it's close to 30,000 rand anyway. Yeah, carry on.
For one couple, husband and wife, we charge $2,800 plus $1,200 on expenses, so that's $4,000. And then when they have kids, we always we take into account how many kids they have, what's their situation. But for, as you say, as an example, a family of 4, that's 2 adults and 2 kids, our fees, I don't have them right here, but I think it is $3,800 plus $2,000 in expenses, something like that. But you know, we're not we're flexible to people's needs. We understand what's going on in South Africa, and not all the families migrating to Uruguay are wealthy. Some are middle class, so people need to work. Some people just, they don't have any money, they're poor and they need to work, get a job. So we always try to, we take those things into account and we try to help people as well. So I wouldn't discard anybody who, if they're watching this video and they say, well, I can't cover your expenses, I can't pay for that, I would still encourage them to contact us, and we will find a solution. We will work it out. If coming to Uruguay will make their life better, easier, safer, we're here to help them.
Yeah. So what you're saying, in effect, is that if someone's got a shortage of funds, you'll make a plan with them to help them get over and still give them support.
Yes, correct.
Yeah, just to butt in there, what we also like about Gonzalo is that the whole fee isn't payable up front. A percentage of it is only payable after our permanent residency has been granted. So that's how sure he is of success. And of course, it helps that one doesn't have to pay everything immediately.
Yeah, I make sure the residency is granted, so I get paid in full. So I need to do my side of the everything. You know, we have to complete what we deliver and complete what we promised to do in the beginning, so we can get paid in full.
So Colette, over to you. How much did it cost you to use Gonzalo for you and your family? I mean, what was the actual total cost?
I can't tell you. Sorry, I didn't expect your question, and I can't remember exactly. But it was in line with his fee.
What he's saying here, yeah.
Yeah. With Troyden, our son, because he's adopted, there's also a whole lot of other expenses. I didn't tell Gonzalo this yet, but a lot of the other people would have charged us extra because he was adopted. Sorry. But Gonzalo didn't do that, being who he is. Yeah. So that also helped us a lot. So, but I can't tell you what his fee is because we haven't paid all of it yet because we're still waiting for our permanent residence.
Now, what sort of currency do you use in Uruguay?
US dollars and then Uruguayan pesos. So it's very confusing and it's a bit disturbing when you get here at first and you're sort of like, oh, how many rand is that? So like I'm forgetting about the rand. So it's sort of a totally different currency and it's a little bit difficult to work with in the beginning, but you get used to it.
Just to clarify that point, Scott, real estate, electronics, and all cars and vehicles are only priced in US dollars. So again, real estate, electronics, vehicles, and it's only in US dollars.
Right, but you can obviously convert.
Food, gas, and other things, and clothing, and that's all in Uruguayan pesos.
Right, okay. Now, Marlene has asked a couple of questions, which and they're related to the cost of living. And firstly, she says, what is the cost of living? And then she says, in South African rands, how much will it cost the average family of 4 to rent a house, including the cost of living per month?
I will let you answer that.
Look, it depends on where you're living. So we are living in a very upmarket suburb. It's full of mansions, in fact. And our house got, our house has got a swimming pool, a tennis court, and it's near this fantastic park I told you about. And it's about 1.5 kilometers from the beach, and also very close to our son's school. And we're paying per month $1,000 but we are actually moving a bit out of town as soon as we build, because it will be a bit cheaper. So it depends where you are. This area where Gonzalo lives, Maldonado, one can get cheaper rentals. Montevideo, you can also say, it just depends what you're looking for. For us, our priority was to be near the school.
Okay.
Because what we have done to cope with the cost of living, obviously coming from South Africa where things are different and maybe cheaper in a sense, because we had our own property and things like that. When we moved to Uruguay, we decided we're not going to buy a car and save, because vehicles are quite expensive and the cost of petrol is quite high. So we rely on bicycles and walking around in public transport and Uber. So that saves us a lot of money, and also it's safe enough that you can do that. So when one moves countries like we have, obviously you're going to take a financial knock. And we decided that the way to cope with this is to simplify our lifestyle. To give you an idea, we eat a huge amount of vegetables. And we have, every week we order organic vegetables on the internet, and we deliver them. They deliver to our house. And it costs about 1,500 pesos. I'd say that would make about 600 or 700 rand per week for organic vegetables. So, and that's our main that we eat. The meat is quite cheap.
Right.
So if you want to eat natural, wholesome food that you cook yourself, it's actually not that expensive.
I would say an average family of a couple with 2 kids, the minimum, they need at least, do you agree with me, at least $2,000 to survive.
Yeah.
Pay for food, the power bill,
Per
telephone, internet. About, you would need
Rent,
you would need at least $2,000 a month.
Okay.
To make.
Well, that gives us a ballpark figure. Now,
It all depends on where you want to live, how big your house needs to be.
Yeah, and look, we are in Punta del Este. This is a more expensive area of Uruguay, because this is where all the very rich people come on holiday. So you do have cheaper areas that you can live in. Right. And if you live in the rurals on the farm, obviously it's going to be totally different.
Mm-hmm. Okay, now Michelle has asked, if I go anywhere, I'll be going solo. Are there compounds and support groups? And I think the other aspect to this is there like a South African community in a particular part of Uruguay where they get together and socialize and so on?
There are actually a lot of expat groups that are very active. So what's it, Uruguay expats in Uruguay. There's a lot of different Facebook groups of different nationalities. So there is a large support group as such, and there are also a lot of South Africans all throughout the country. Although our strategy, apart from having that support, and we would obviously support everyone as much as we could as well, but our strategy as a family is also to try and integrate into the local community, because ultimately Uruguay is going to be our permanent home, and we want to be Uruguayans, not South Africans only sticking together. So, but there is support, and not only from expats, the normal local Uruguayan is willing and able to help us as immigrants.
Now, Colette, if someone emails me after the live stream and they say, look, I'd love to speak to Colette because, I'm a single person, or, need to talk about support groups and stuff like that, are you happy for me to give or forward that email to you so you can talk to them?
Sorry, I got a stick in my throat. Yes, we've also got a very soft spot as a family for single parents, because I think of everyone, single parents have a very tough time, and our home and our hearts are open to everyone. So you're very welcome to contact me afterwards, and I'll be happy to help.
Okay, so all those listening, I'll just put my email address in the side chat, and after the show, just send me an email and just put in the headline Colette, or contacting Colette, and just a little brief so that Colette knows what you want to talk to her about. But there's my email address, so just send me an email and I'll forward it directly to Colette. Okay, now let's continue. Now, Michelle has asked, what are work opportunities like in Uruguay? And I guess you really need to be able to speak Spanish to get most types of work or employment.
Yeah, preferably Spanish. Would help you a lot. And most jobs you need to speak Spanish. You need to handle a basic conversation. You need to handle the basic Spanish to get a job. Although there are companies, international companies that operate in Uruguay, and you can get a job even if you just speak English. I have a few South African clients, young ones residing in Montevideo. They got jobs in the free trade zone, and one of them works teaching English in a school, and then working for one of those travel insurance, and they're doing well with their English. Of course, they have workmates, local Uruguayans, and they are kind of compelled to learn Spanish, and they're doing well. But it would make things easier if you can handle a little bit of Spanish. But it's not a wall that you will have. Okay, you speak no Spanish, you will get no job. No, it's not like that. Even the expat community is quite large in Uruguay. The English-speaking expat community is quite large. We have lots of Americans, Europeans, South Africans. We have people from all over the world who have moved and started a new life in Uruguay, and they need services. So if you can only speak English, you will at least be able to get some work through the expat community.
Yeah. Now, just to Apple, this is a beauty of Uruguay, because if you're a pensioner, you are still welcome to migrate to Uruguay. This is why we said at the very start of this live stream that it's ideal for young families who've got children and elderly parents, because they can all come over. It's not a problem at all.
Uruguay welcomes people. We have a demographic problem that for decades and decades, our population has been 3 million for the last 30 years. And we can easily see some government policies to welcome people from different parts of the world and make the country and the economy grow. So they don't make it difficult for old, middle-aged, or young people to move to Uruguay and get settled. Actually, government welcomes immigration.
Right. Now, we got a couple of related questions here. Gonzalo, do Uruguay have a government pension plan for retirement, and will it be sufficient to live off? And there's another question here. And this is from Quest, will people's pensions be taxed?
No, people's pensions are not taxed. Only the super high pensions are taxed. But that's people who have been, they made a fortune while they worked. They made a lot of money. Those pensions, they are taxed. To get a pension, you need to have worked in Uruguay for 30 years, from 25 to 30 years. So if you are in your 60s and you come to work in Uruguay, you will never get a pension. So I encourage everyone who has a business to save money for their pension, and as a pension, and cover their future expenses when they get old.
Right.
But there's help from government if you don't get to
right.
If you don't get your pension granted, There's help from government. There are subsidies. We do live in a socialist country. It has some advantages and perhaps many disadvantages, but the system works somehow.
So it is a socialist country.
Yes, I would say so.
Yes. Okay. Now, related to the what we've just been talking about, how much do you pay for private healthcare? And that's from Lizelle.
Okay, private healthcare. So I go back to this topic of if you have a job, your employer pays for your health insurance. That's usually the case.
Right.
If you have a business, whatever your business is, you pay a little premium that will give you health care. But let's say you don't have a job and you don't have a business, or you don't want to get health insurance, you pay the basic full coverage plan will cost $80. Then you have VIP plans that will cost up to $400 a month. But a basic good plan to be fully covered, it will cost $80. I would say at the most 100. That's the average fee from private hospitals. And if you declare you're poor, you can get free care from the public government hospital. And it won't be the best, Medicare you can have, but you will have at least free care from government. You will have to wait more at the ER, you will have to wait more to see a specialist, but you have it. I feel that those $80 or $100 that you pay a month, it's a reasonable fee for the services they provide.
Right. Okay, now...
Let me go. This might answer somebody else's question. If you have any pre-existing disease, private hospitals may not take you. So you need to know how to find a way and to get health insurance, but you can't, no matter what it is.
Right. Now Nadine's asked, what would suffice as proof of income?
You need at least you need to prove that you make at least $1,500 a month.
Now, what about people who are unemployed in South Africa? Because one of the big problems in South Africa is BEE, which has resulted in a large percentage of white South Africans being unemployed, not because they don't want to work, but because the government policy, the ANC government policy, makes sure that they can't get work.
So,
well, in our case, I also heard about this proof of income, and I was asking Gonzalo all the time, when must we give him proof of income? But as he explained earlier on, that when you get to Uruguay, you hand in your documents to immigration, and you can then get your income going. And then when you finalize your permanent residency, at that point, you're giving proof of income. So if you haven't got an income in South Africa, it doesn't mean you can't come to Uruguay, but obviously they are not going to give permanent residency if at that point you still are not able to support yourself. But what we found, look, I've got a job over the internet, so that helps me a lot, and it took off a lot of stress that other people may face. But you can get something going. But, it's something people have to work out themselves. But you don't have to have it immediately when you get here.
If you're unemployed in South Africa, you come to Uruguay, and then it takes you 3-4 months to get a job, and then you get a job that only pays you $700-800 monthly. That will be enough for immigration authorities to as a proof of income.
Okay.
That will be I would say for a married couple, you need at least $1,500, but for a single applicant, you don't need that much.
Is that
if you read the law on the internet, it says that you need $500 a month, but that's an law that was passed in the 80s, and these days you cannot survive with $500 a month. That's why they know that that's your income, you can barely make it. Right. So that's why you have to show a bit more. But again, you can still come if you don't have a job. can try to find a job here or set up your business. There are a lot of opportunities for some fields, some business opportunities, and I wouldn't just close the door. I would still explore it, and I would still pursue it. I would still try Uruguay.
Okay, now is that figure of 1,500 gross or net?
No, it's gross.
Okay, gross, right. How free and fair is the judicial system in Uruguay?
Well, I trust the system. I was born and raised here, and I've seen changes. In the past couple of years, they changed the penal system, judiciary system, and they're more efficient now, and they are more executive when it comes to punish criminals and to serve justice.
Right.
And our maximum penalty in Uruguay is 30 years in jail. So we don't have death penalty, we don't have life imprisonment. So that's our maximum. The maximum time you can serve in prison in Uruguay is 30 years.
Yeah.
And privacy is respected. Private property is sacred. Just to give you an example, how the Constitution protects your privacy in your home. In Uruguay, the police department, they can't get a warrant and get into your home after it gets dark. So they have to wait till the next day when the sun rises. If they need to, to honor the search warrant, they can't access your home at nighttime. So, well, that's obviously a problem they have with the drug dealers. They deal at night and they can't get into your house, your home.
Yeah.
So when the sun rises, there's nothing there. They're gone. That's an issue. But they take your privacy, your home, as a sacred place, and that cannot be invaded, not even by the police department, not by a court warrant from the judge. And I trust the system. It's not perfect, of course, but in general, it's very efficient. They serve justice.
Yeah. Now, Chantel's asked, and this is something we were going to get to, and it's probably now a good time to go into it. She says, if we open a business, how much income needs to be generated through said business to qualify as sufficient? And I would ask a little bit more about that. Is there a need to have some like a partner or Uruguayan director involved in, let's say, a company in Uruguay when you first go there? Or can you just own the business yourself?
You can own the business yourself. You don't need any Uruguayan to be involved in your business. They don't need to be the directors, the managers. They don't need to be Uruguayan. They can be South African. And in regards to the income, we go back to the same thing. If you have a small business, let's say you are a personal trainer or you are an English teacher and you teach English at home, and you're single and you make $1,000 a month, that will be enough as a proof of income.
Okay.
And you need to prove, we don't want to get into details, but you need to prove you've been generating that income for a few months. That needs to be certified, and that will suffice in immigration authorities.
Right.
And then some little businesses don't pay income tax. So you just pay a flat fee. So they let you start. It's not just a hassle or you can start with little, and government gives you some air to make a new fresh start, and they don't tax you to death.
Yeah, and part of your service is actually helping people set up a business in Uruguay, isn't it?
That's correct. We do that through our CPA. Our accountant handles the paperwork. We guide them. We do some of the work ourselves, and but we have professional advice from our CPA. Our accountant handles that. She has a big staff in her office, and we do the follow-up, and we go with our clients we make sure things are done properly as well.
Yeah, and when one starts that small business, like Gonzalo said, there's no tax involved, and you pay a monthly fee to have the business, but included in that fee then would be your medical aid for a private hospital.
Right. Okay. Now, a couple of people have asked about guns. Basically, the question is, are private citizens allowed to own guns and rifles in Uruguay?
That's correct. As soon as you apply for residency, you are eligible for a Uruguayan ID. So you get your ID in about 10 days. As soon as you have your local ID, we can guide you through the gun permit process. That requires some lessons, some medical checkups, and some actual shootings. You need to learn about the laws in Uruguay, and you can have a gun permit. You, as a South African citizen with a Uruguayan ID, you will have a gun 45 days after your arrival. I mean, it could take a bit longer depending on the government's bureaucracy, but you can have it very soon. And gun permits allow you to have up to 3 guns per person, either long or short guns, handguns. If you want to have more guns, because you are a gun fanatic, we can help you become a collector, and then you can have any caliber and limited numbers of guns. But you know, if you own a farm and you need a shotgun or a rifle to kill a wild boar, a fox, or any of those animals, you need to protect your property. You can have you can have 3 guns. Your spouse can have another 3 guns. So that's a lot of 6 guns. It's quite a reasonable number, and it's doable. They don't make any difference because you're not a citizen yet. You can access guns. You can even have a carrying permit, but that's not really necessary, I would say. But you qualify. That's one of the advantages of becoming a resident. You're just like one of us. You have the same rights and the same privileges.
I think that answers Michelle's question here. She says, can one buy property in Uruguay? Now, Colette, I'm going to put that to you because I think you're in the process of buying property, aren't you?
Yes, we have bought property already. It's about 500 or 600 meters from the beach, so that's what was attractive for us. And anyway, so we're going to enjoy that to the full. You can buy property, but another reason why we're very happy to have Gonzalo on our side is because the property laws and the way things are done are completely different. So although property rights are guaranteed by the Constitution, there are different types of ownerships, and there are people, Uruguayans are sometimes creative in things that they shouldn't be doing. So we made a mistake, in fact, because we saw an advert on a piece of land, and it was quite a good price, and we took it. We got the paperwork for this property, and we took it to a lady that Gonzalo recommended, and she said, "No, I'm not going to touch this." And apparently, you can have life rights to a property, and you can sell those life rights, but the person buying it doesn't really own anything, and they've got to go through some big legal process. So because we had one of Gonzalo's contacts, and she's very upright, and she just said, "I'm not going to handle this at all." It saved us from making a very expensive mistake.
You need to have in Uruguay. The concept when you need a lawyer is usually when you're in trouble. But the person you will end up trusting more in Uruguay is your notary. The notary is like a civil attorney. They have a lot of power, and you need to trust them because they will do the proper title research, look for debts, mortgage, loans, penalties, any violations when you buy a piece of real estate, any property. So you need to use a notary you trust, and that defends your interest, and that's on your side. And that was the case with Colette. Because it's not. I wouldn't say they do it intentionally, but you can make a mistake, and you can end up in a wrong situation.
Well, they can certainly come to you for advice in that area. Now, is property in Uruguay more expensive than in South Africa, Colette?
Look, we lived in a small town in the Western Cape, and we sold our property for R1 million, about.
Yeah.
And we've been able to buy a piece of land, but look, it is right near the ocean, so it's a very well-placed piece of land, much smaller, and now we're trying to build buildings more expensive as well. So they've got different types of building, like steel frame with sort of prefabricated, not double brick like we used to. There's also taxes involved when you build, and you've got to make sure you do stuff properly. So the size and the cost of property in the area where we live in, And remember, it's probably one of the most expensive areas in Uruguay. It's actually quite steep. One can get a lot of cheap farms, but because of our son's school, we ended up here where we are.
Right.
So it really depends on what. But, I think in South Africa, if you had to get a piece of land right near the ocean, you'd also pay quite a bit for it.
Yeah, sure. Now, Danny asks, is Uruguay big on tourism? How easy is it to buy into a going concern already making money from tourists, like a bed and breakfast, for example?
Well, we depend on our economy depends a lot on tourism, and unfortunately, the high season here is very short. I would say late December to the middle of February. So that's a high season. It's still warm or hot in late February, but most tourists have already left. So right. the high season is very short, and the truth is we have suffered the consequences of all the problems from Brazil and Argentina, and I can't deny they are going through a huge crisis, and we suffer those consequences. And the high season and the tourism also suffers those problems. But going back to your question, to become a travel agent, a tourist operator, and you can do it. You have no problem. There's no impediment. There's no difference. If you're a South African citizen, you can do it. You can operate. You can work. You can. There's no difference, and there's a time frame in which you can apply for the license. That you have to get the license before the summer begins. So, the licenses are usually requested from March through September, and then depending on what you do, they don't give you a license because they have a lot of people who, let's say, from our neighbor countries, they came with money. They set up a business, a bed and breakfast, a restaurant, or any of those businesses aimed for tourism. They set up the business, and then things didn't work out well, and they disappear. So they didn't pay the staff, they didn't pay taxes, they just vanished. Right. So right now, the government is more strict for those seasonal businesses or licenses they give. So they make sure you're really committed to the cause and to follow the rules. Mm-hmm. Hope I have answered your question.
Yeah, so a South African family we know is in the process of opening a restaurant. So there are opportunities.
Okay. How many South Africans are there in Uruguay now? Are there thousands?
I would say it's close to 1,000.
In the country now? Okay, so it's quite a small community at this stage. Okay.
South Africans, yeah, but it's been growing a lot. I mean, 5 years ago, they didn't even get to 100, and now they're probably around 1,000, maybe more. But right. You can see the numbers of South Africans in Uruguay has been growing and growing.
Yeah, so our son's school has got 2 South African teachers.
Okay, so it's a great place for teachers to move to because they can get an income from teaching.
I actually spoke to the principal at the school about the chances of a South African person getting a teaching job, and she said in the private schools, English native speakers are sought after. Wow. The only time they have a problem is if the teacher's teaching the lower grades because the children then can't communicate. But certainly for the higher grades, she said an English-speaking teacher is sought after.
Well, there you go. I don't know if there are any teachers in the side chat who are listening, but there you go. That would be a very good way to go. Now, we got 2 more questions related to property. In fact, we got 3. John asked earlier, how much cropland is available, and I guess what are the costs of farming land? And Jarko asked, is residential property expensive in the urban areas? And Aletta asked, how much for a 3-bedroom house on beachside to buy on an average? There you go.
But I'd recommend is look on Mercado Libre. It's a website where everything gets sold in Uruguay, and you get all the property prices there, plus the areas.
What's the Google search for that?
Mercado Libre. You'll have to spell it.
It's as it sounds, mercadolibre.com.uy.
So it's mercadolibre.com.uy. And that is, and you'll get the prices of everything, because businesses advertise on there, and then also private individuals. So it gives you a good idea of property prices plus anything else that you want in the whole country.
If you want to buy a property close to the ocean, it depends on what town. Remember, we have 600 kilometers of coast.
Wow.
Depending on where you want to live. If you want to live here at the beach in Punta del Este, a 3-bedroom house will be pricey, expensive. If you go to Pirapolis, it will be way cheaper.
Okay, how much would it be when we say pricey?
Look, the land, when we were looking, just a piece of land here in Punta del Este, I think it was $150 per square meter. Okay. It's very expensive.
Right.
But in Balneario, Buenos Aires, where we bought land now, it turned out to about $50 a meter, which is also expensive if you think in terms of rand. But these are the more expensive parts of Uruguay.
Right. And
but a pricey property of it could be.
Depends on the
construction, how the view you have. It depends. There are many variations, but a 3-bedroom house in Uruguay on the beach could cost from $200,000 US to $250. You wouldn't be able to buy one property for less than that.
Right. But if you bought a flat, for example, in Montevideo, how much would that cost approximately in US dollars?
Yeah, 150, 180,000.
Okay, depending on the area.
Yeah, the variations are you have and farmland. You can buy farmland, but it also depends on how far. The thing is, there's a new trend now on the east side on the coast. Many foreign investors came and they bought a lot of farmland for olive trees plantations. So we are exporting a lot of olive oil. Wineries, it's a new trend. There's a lot of Uruguayan wine being exported. And so the closer you are to the coast, the more expensive it will cost.
Right.
But there's a lot of cropland, farmland available. And the prices, to give you a price, the price range is huge. But there's a lot available, and the fact of you being a South African, not Uruguayan, is not an impediment to buy farmland.
Yeah. Now, just going for the dirt cheapest farmland, what would you be paying per acre, for example, in Uruguay if it is really cheap farmland?
So our market is by the hectare. So that would be 2 acres. 1 hectare is more or less 2 acres. And when you talk about farmland, you pay an average of $5,000 a hectare.
Is that
for good soil, right?
That's for good quality land?
Yes.
Okay. Well, that gives us a kind of a ballpark figure. Right.
Yeah, now, you can find land for way more than that, maybe for less, but the real estate the real estate market is huge, and there are lots of prices, and depending on the zoning and.
Well, just for the side chat and people following, we've had about 450 people watching the whole way through. So it's a nice audience that we've gotten. Lots of questions, which is showing a lot of interest. Which is always very positive. Now, just for those who are watching, I have put the website for Gonzalo's business directly below the video, and also his email address, which I'll just post into the side chat just so that people can contact him direct on that as well. So this is Gonzalo's email address that I'm posting right now. Here we go. All right. Now,
Just
carry on, Colette.
I'm sorry, just on farming also, coming from South Africa, we really appreciate the good rainfall. It just rains enough, everything is green. One more has to worry that your vegetables don't drown, because if your land's a bit low, you might have an accumulation of water. So there's no problem with watering your crops.
No, Uruguay actually that was in the media not long ago. Uruguay has the biggest freshwater reservoir in the world. We are beneath our country, we have the Guarani aquifer, so we have a lot of water.
Yeah, and it's not deep. Someone said you dig a hole 10 meters deep and you're in the aquifer.
You go 10 meters deep and you have a lot of water.
Wow.
For sure.
Fantastic. And now, another question here. If you buy a property, is it on a 99-year lease, or do you own the property rights? What about mineral rights? Do the mines have the ability to chuck you off your land if they find something underneath your land?
Then, when you buy property, you always just own it. When it comes to mining, government becomes a partner with you. If they happen to find any minerals on your property, unfortunately, or it could be a curse, it could be a blessing, but we don't have many natural resources.
Right.
They're searching for natural gas in the waters, and gold and silver was taken long time ago by the people that conquered our country long time ago. And there's an open mine industry that a lot of people got opposed, and they didn't allow it, and because of the pollution problem. People are becoming, Uruguay, there's an awakening for the environmental issues, and the people speak up when they are against something,
right,
in a good way.
Okay, now, sorry, Colette, you were going to say something?
No, that wasn't.
Okay. Now, Buzz has asked, I have a medical issue with vaccinations. Argentina requires all citizens and residents be fully vaccinated. Is this a requirement in Uruguay?
No, you can opt out not to get vaccinated, and we can we know how to find a solution to that issue when people cannot or don't want to get vaccinated. So that's not a problem.
Okay. Now, I actually got an email yesterday from someone who's living in Montevideo, and his name is Jacques, and he's an expat South African, and he said I'd like to share some information about my thoughts about Uruguay, and I think it's always good to, because we're not talking about someone totally different, and his big beef is that he finds the country boring. I think that any South African who is stuck in South Africa right now and is facing the sort of things that they're facing would love a country where things are boring. He says, I've been living in Uruguay for 3 years. All in all, a very peaceful, safe and tranquil country compared to others. 2 negatives. It is expensive and boring. Although some Uruguayans may be offended if you say that to them.
No, I don't get offended by that. It's expensive, yes, that's a fact. Uruguay is an expensive country for sure. But boring, it's all up to your expectations.
Yeah, well,
I'm surprised he's bored in Montevideo, because there's a lot of social life in Montevideo, the capital city, way more than here. If he comes to live here in Malta, he will die of boredom.
Yeah. Montevideo's got operas and all kinds of things that sometimes I think I wish we were in Montevideo, but we don't like the city. But there's always a lot of stuff going on there.
I recently went to the UFC fights, to a fight night. There are many concerts of rock stars coming. We had Rod Stewart, Bryan Adams coming. If you like music, there's the museums, theaters. Oh yeah, it's not New York City, of course it's not. But I think you have a lot of options available.
Right.
In the worst case scenario, if you want a lot of action, you can go for a weekend to Buenos Aires, to Argentina, and you have
that's
more
just
nights.
across the ditch, isn't
Yeah.
it? Yeah.
Yeah, you catch a ferry.
Yeah, you catch a ferry, and
Wow.
it costs nothing to go there and spend a weekend, and you come back and you have a lot of action happening there.
Okay, now,
Yeah, I mean,
Jacques goes on to say, Uruguay is a very good option for people, especially for retirees and older people who want to get out of South Africa as soon as possible and are looking for an easy solution. It's a good temporary solution for everyone in any case. As the South African community grows here, it's likely that it could become more interesting and enjoyable. Although Uruguayan people are friendly, it is not easy to integrate in Uruguay since the people are quite insular and outsiders are not let into social groups very easily, even after years of living here. So with more South Africans around, at least that part could end up easier. Any thoughts on that, Zala? Or Colette?
I couldn't give a thought as a South African.
You could be right about that. That happens a lot. So some people have, and you don't have to be a foreigner. You don't have to be South African. People have like circles of friendship, and
Yeah.
People in the capital city, they are socialized more than in the interior, and they let you take part of their issues, their problems, their good things, their activities, and people allow foreigners to integrate.
We have not really that experience with Montevideo, but when we came here to Punta del Este, we were told by one of the parents at the school how nice Punta del Este is, and this is an Uruguayan person, and we've made friends with that family.
Right.
He says because many of the Uruguayans that live in this area don't have their families with them, so a lot of people don't have their family, and they're very open to making friends. So we've made friends with people that we've met at the park when our son's been playing and things like that. So I think it really just depends on one's own expectations,
Yeah.
and are you outgoing and friendly and so on as well. And also the people around you, if you have difficulty making friends, maybe join a club or do something, and then it'll be less boring, and also you'll be more exposed to people with the same interests, and then you'll find you will make friends. We've made some very good friends and met some very nice people, and we've only been here for a few months.
Yeah. Now, Jacques goes on to say, and he qualifies what he said earlier, generally speaking, however, for the most part, politics aside, Uruguayans are very welcoming, friendly, and open to foreigners and immigrants in terms of public interactions. So it is an easy place to live, even if integration in terms of having a social circle or making friends locally can be difficult. South Africans who do not make the effort to seek out other South Africans here are likely to feel isolated at times. Now, that's his perspective. You've obviously got a totally different perspective, Colette. So all I'm doing is I'm just throwing this in here so people get, a different person's viewpoint on living in Uruguay. And he goes on to say, which is interesting, one more thing. Very few Uruguayans speak, or rather are prepared to speak, English. To live here, to do business and communicate with people, Spanish is absolutely necessary. This is a general case in South America. By the way, South Africans who are unwilling to learn Spanish are likely to find it difficult to live here, as not having Spanish will add to the feeling of isolation that some expats tend to experience. Colette, your views on that?
Look, one has to learn Spanish to become a citizen. And so obviously we are intending to integrate into the country, and so I really need to get a bit better with my personal Spanish lessons. But what we find is that people are very friendly and helpful. In the supermarket, if I can't read the label, for example, the shop will find somebody that can. We've been in, especially when we first got here, certain shops and that where they'll ask a customer who's English speaking so that they can convey. So we found that people are very helpful, and again, it might just be the area, and I do believe that the more in the interior or the more rural areas, there's less English, but Punta del Este is a very large tourist area, so
there's
maybe
a lot of
because
English
of that they're more English. But we found, look, we've also had the attitude that we are the ones with the problem because we are the ones lacking Spanish, so
Yeah.
we are doing the best that we can to communicate, but we find that people are helpful in general.
I have the same feeling. I have seen myself dealing with my clients, and when I walk with them to different places, that in general people are friendly to them, even if they can't communicate in Spanish. They find a way to use a cell phone, Google Translate, or some devices, or they find a person who can handle a basic conversation in English. And as Colette said, it's important to outline that one of the major benefits behind residency is to citizenship. If you're married, in 3 years' time, you can apply for citizenship and have Uruguay passport. And when you're single, you have to wait 5 years. So one of the requirements for citizenship is handling a basic conversation in Spanish.
Yeah.
So that you show that you integrated into the society.
Which is a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Now, I have to tell you that I often on my channel say to people, look, you've got to have a plan B. And my advice to those people who are watching this video is get that documentation together. You might not be thinking of leaving right now, but just get it current, get it together. Remember that a police certificate only lasts for 6 months, but it's crucial that you look at getting all that documentation together so that if you do decide you want to go to Uruguay and you're talking to Gonzalo, you can say, Gonzalo, I've got all our documentation, and then the process will be so quick. What are your thoughts on that, Gonzalo?
These days, I just look at, I have clients from America. They paid $200,000 to have a Dominica or St. Kitts and Nevis passport. And those are passports that are not good to go to Europe if you wanted to. Or countries that require a huge investment to become a citizen and have I think these days with we live in a world that is not stable, and having a plan B, having a second option in case your home country says, well, we will not let you go out, or if we let you go out, you have to pay an exit tax. Those things could happen. You say, well, you know what, I'm a Uruguayan citizen, here's my passport, please let me out, it's your right. And a plan B these days, it's an advantage that you have in life.
Yeah, and just on the documents as well, with us, we got our documentation ready, we climbed on the plane, we came here with our dogs, and then after that we started the immigration process. So if one has the documentation ready, at any point one can then just come. So it's a good idea to have it. And also what South Africans need to realize is that as things are falling apart in South Africa, so these documents are taking longer to get.
Yeah.
For example, police clearance used to take 10 days. I hear now it's taking a few months. I also heard from friends from Zimbabwe a while ago that there was a point in Zimbabwe when there was no paper to print passports.
Yeah, I heard that. Yeah.
It's fall apart. You're gonna, if people start to delay the issuing of passports, what then are you going to do? To have the documents ready, that if you're ever in a situation where you have to flee or you're a refugee, at least have those documents. One can always get them apostilled or whatever, at least start the process, because it is becoming quite urgent. I totally agree with your sentiment, Scott.
Yeah. Now, you don't have to have a visa to travel to Uruguay, do you? You just fly in.
No.
That's correct. You don't need a visa South Africans don't need a visa to enter the country. You just enter the country as a tourist, and then you just
make an application.
Make an application for residency. They don't even question you why you come to Uruguay. Just welcome to Uruguay. They stamp your passport, and that's it.
And they also don't expect you to have a return ticket showing that you're going out. You can just literally come.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, Crazy Hippie has asked, do all adults need to have their unabridged birth certificates? And while we're just going, can you just name the different types of documents required? Because I've got a couple of people who obviously weren't listening earlier to the discussion. So if you could just set out exactly what documents are required.
So birth and marriage certificate, if they're married, those unabridged, and those need to be apostilled. Police report, apostille as well. That can be up to 6 months old. Should be less than 6 months old when you enter the country. And the medical tests are done here in Uruguay. If you're a female applicant, what you need is a pap smear and a mammogram. The results, the summary, that can be up to 18 months old. Or if you haven't been through a pap smear or a mammogram, you can easily get it here. Just pay for it and privately, and you get it. So medical, birth and marriage certificates, police report, the proof of income, we discussed that earlier. So if you have an income, they should contact us prior to traveling. We can make the arrangements and get those documents certified by a notary in South Africa, apostille if necessary. And basically that's what you need. You need a vaccination statement. But if
and just something that we found out as well is that that we had an adoption order, and that was issued in Afrikaans. Your documents all have to be in English, so we had to have it translated by an official translator in South Africa from Afrikaans to English.
Yeah, documents that are issued in English don't need a translation in South Africa. We do the translation in Uruguay because it has to be done by a sworn registered translator in Uruguay. But we don't have an African translator, so we would need an interpreter, and that would make things more difficult. But documents in English are just good enough. And in the case of if you want to open a bank account, that has nothing to do with residency. You will need a tax declaration, tax statement, or a statement from a CPA stating that you're complying with state rules and taxation. You need a bank statement. You need the proof of income for the bank. They want to know how you make a living. So the proof of income document will also be required by your bank executive to set up your account.
Right.
And just what we ourselves also did to get our money out of South Africa quickly, because Uruguay takes quite a while. You first have to be here and so on. It's a bit of a procedure to get a bank account. We opened an account with the bank in Mauritius, and that was quite easy to do. So that's something I'm quite happy to give the details to whoever wants it. It didn't cost anything, but our money was offshore safely out of the country long before we left.
Fantastic. Now, just on the contact side, guys, for those of you who are listening or watching this video, all you have to do is send me an email address and just put Colette's name in the title, and then just give a brief description of what information you want, and I will forward that to Colette. But send the email to me first. With Gonzalo, I've put his email address directly below this live stream, so you can always send him an email from there or have a look at his website. Now, Annaki's asked, what about the elderly on pension but living with children? Like me, I'm a widow. And I think we've already discussed that. And my opening gambit was that this is the ideal country for the elderly people with children to go to, because the country accepts people of any age. Gonzalo, over to you.
Yeah, that's correct. We welcome people who are retired, and their foreign pension will not be taxed when they wire the funds into the country, and they should feel welcome. Actually, everyone I know feels who is retired is having a good life here and making a good living, and I don't see any issue in regards to that matter.
Right. Now, speaking again to those people watching, if you have any other questions, please just post them in the side chat. Rob's just asked, do they play rugby at school level?
Yes. There's rugby at our son's school, as well as soccer, handball, tennis. They arrange sailing. They can learn sailing here at the local yacht club as part of the school. Right. There's a lot of different sports. Rugby is one of them.
Ray, I'll just put my email address in here for you. Okay, there you go. Okay, Stephen asks, any issues with bringing one's fur babies, talking about cats and dogs, and we've already discussed that, Stephen. No problem at all. In fact, Colette, do you want to tell Stephen what you did?
Yeah, we brought our animals ourselves. There's a Facebook page called South Africans Immigrating with Pets. They've got a lot of information on there. There's obviously requirements. If you can send me an email, I'll send you the Uruguayan requirements for bringing the pets into the country. They need a certain test called a leishmaniasis.
We don't have that disease in Uruguay, but because you fly through Brazil, they have it in Brazil. They require
they require it. It's an obscure disease, but you need to have your pets care so that your pets wouldn't have had it in South African rabies. But I can send us information sheet about the requirements, and then Gonzalo also knows immigration agents that can assist, but one can do it oneself.
Right. Now, Crazy's asked, my husband and I don't have a lot of money, and both our mums would come with us, and they agree, both unemployed. Would you be able to help us? Now, Crazy, Gonzalo said that for people who are cash poor, he would come to some kind of arrangement if possible.
That's correct.
But you would obviously have to pay your own way over there, and you'd have to have all the documentation in place and stuff like that. My suggestion to you is that you just contact Gonzalo through his webpage or through his email. And
that would be great.
Yeah. Now, Mike's asked about the political situation in Uruguay.
We have elections now in October, and the fight is very tight. We've had a socialist government for about 15 years, and there are chances. The polls are saying that the opposition has big chances of, taking power in the country and winning the elections. We need to have more than 50. The candidate needs to have more than 50% of the votes to become a president, and that's not going to happen. We have 3 candidates running for president now, and we'll have a ballotage. We have a second round probably in November. Then, if you look into politics in Uruguay, I think it's the only country in the world. I was watching the news last night. The two main, the two candidates who have a real chances of becoming the new president, they were giving a speech 200 meters away from each other. When they finished the speech, they went to greet each other and hug. Probably they do it for the media, but they don't hate each other. We have in politics, they disagree with each other. They have different perspectives and point of views, but there's no hate, like evil and good.
Yeah.
And there are proposals that could make the country more friendly to business, better in many ways, more advanced, and so. But the good thing is, if you compare again the political situation to our neighbor countries such as Brazil and Argentina, we are very stable. In this, people might agree or disagree with the current government and the president, but they would still address him with a lot of respect, and they wouldn't treat him badly. You would see the president shaking your hand, and I mean, he has 2 bodyguards when he works.
Yeah.
When he's out and about, and he talks to people, and I think our political situation is stable, and our politicians are not corrupt. Maybe there is some corruption in a way, but I wouldn't say our government has corruption issues. There are problems. Things happen, of course.
Yeah.
But we don't have a huge problem with corruption, and that makes the country and the economy stable. Although, I mean, we have issues with to deal with financial issues. That
right.
we need foreign investment. There's a lot of construction going on in Punta here, and but Uruguay always, especially the east side of the country, always benefited from the investment from the Argentinians and the Brazilians and other neighbor countries who invested in the country, and that helped a lot with the improvement of our economy.
Right.
But going back to the political situation, we're not going through a crisis or anything like that.
Yeah. Now, Helena's asked, Colette, where did you do the test for your pets for the diseases? Our vet says it will take 6 months for the results.
What we actually did, because I was so worried and paranoid about our dogs and something happening to them, we did a totally alternative trip. We went from Cape Town to Schiphol Airport in Amsterdam, and then we flew back because we wanted to be on the same plane as our pets, and we were in the Western Cape. And so we flew from there to Argentina, Buenos Aires, and we stayed there for 5 days, just getting to see Argentina a little bit while we were traveling. And we had a pet agency company, they do the tests, and because it's a disease that's in this area, the test took a few minutes actually. There's some like really easy test, and then after that we caught the ferry with the dogs over into Colonia in Uruguay. So that's how we did it. So how long the pet test takes in South Africa, I can't comment on that.
Yeah.
It's got to go to Onderstepoort, and that is a bit of a mission, like the rabies starter tests as well.
Yeah. Now, just a question here, which I think is a very important one. Folks are asking for parents who do not have any income, i.e. they're dependent on their siblings. Are they still able to come over?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, they are. We can find ways to.
No, I would say it's the same, isn't it? If with us we are showing proof of income for the family, then our children would be covered under that. So as a family, isn't it, you have to show enough income to support your whole family. So if one's parents haven't got an income but you can support them, then it should be fine.
Yeah, and you can actually, just to clarify, you can actually do that once you're in Uruguay, get a job and then create an income and then use that as part of your documentation actually in Uruguay when you apply.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay.
That's right.
All right. Now, are there any other questions people would like to ask Gonzalo and Colette? Now's the perfect time to do it. We'll be wrapping up the live stream soon. We've been going for nearly 2 hours, and there's been a lot of interest in the side chat. Now, just to clarify, Gonzalo's email address is directly below this video, as are the websites to his business. Please go and have a look. And if you want to talk to Gonzalo about migration to Uruguay, there is his email address. Thanks, Jaco.
If we haven't missed any relevant topic, I mean, people can feel free to contact us and make questions. I'm happy to talk to them via WhatsApp, Skype, or by email, and answer their questions and hear their proposal, listen to their problems or their future plans will be.
Well, I think we didn't yet mention this also as the population demographic in Uruguay, that it's mainly Italian and Spanish extraction, so our population is mainly European, and that's one of the reasons why we chose Uruguay as our new home, because we knew we're going to fit in. We don't look any different to the vast majority of the population, and we wanted a country where our son would have a future. And so it's actually quite nice that even a person that will work in the toilets in the supermarket cleaning them is just like all of us. There's no sort of lower class. Everyone is just a normal. And in fact, at our son's school, there's a security guard, and it took me a while to realize that he's actually working as a security guard. I always thought he was one of the parents. Oh. So one doesn't even see, oh, well, this is the cleaner and this is the sweeper. Everyone, we've got good friends, and the wife is the cleaner in one of a block of flats. There's no, like, you a cleaner. Everyone's sort of on the same social level, which is quite nice. We enjoy that.
Yeah.
I think in general, Uruguayans are not classist. They don't look down on you because you're poor or because... I don't get that feeling, do you?
Yeah. No, look, we live quite close to a very exclusive golf course in this very upmarket suburb, And when our family has been walking past the golf course, those people in the golf course that obviously have a lot more money than us wave at us and say hello, and they can see we're poor because we're walking all over the place. So we not look down on for living a more simplified kind of life.
Yeah. Now, Alabak has asked, what is the minimum financial requirements? Hang on, let me just get that question back. And the age requirement. Now, just to answer that question, we have actually discussed that extensively here, so I'm not going to put that question to Gonzalo, but he can confirm that those are not issues.
Yeah, that's right, Scott. I mean,
okay. Matt's asked, how big is the Italian community?
Italian. Well, we have a lot of Italian blood in Uruguay.
Yeah.
Most of our ancestors were from Italy or Spain, so there's a lot of Italian blood. The Italian community is quite big. There's a lot of Italian citizens, yes, and they have a policy in Italy that you can apply for Italian citizenship if you can prove you have a blood link. And
yeah,
but there are many. There are Italian clubs, Italian groups, and it is quite big, I would say.
Okay. Now Rodney's asked, do you need electricians? Of course they do.
Yes. There's a huge project, a new casino and building coming soon. They will need a lot of electricians, and there's demand. I mean, there's offer and demand. And I think good quality or skilled people will find work.
Yeah. Now Liesel said, can I get finance to buy a farm?
No, the truth is that's almost impossible.
Right.
That's impossible. We are a cash-based economy. So properties, real estate, vehicles, it's all cash. I mean, unless you have a very good credit reputation, credit history, they can loan you what's missing, 30, 40%.
Yeah.
When it comes to property, but for farmland, they don't usually give you credit. It's hard. Credit here is not easy to access in Europe.
Yeah. So with buying property, we found that it has to all be cash, but there's a lot of buildings in that are partially built, and people build it as they get money because there is no bond that you can get even if you're an Uruguayan citizen. So there's an advantage to it, and we recently have contacted someone to take life insurance, and the lady said the life insurance isn't really something Uruguayans worry about, and of course it's because no one has bonds and debts, so people live precious, and maybe that's why they're so happy, because they're not burdened down with paying things off.
Right. Okay, now, are there any further questions from the side chat, guys? Please feel free to throw them in there now, and I'll put them to Colette and Gonzalo. But while we're waiting for that, I just want to say thank you guys so much for coming forward and having this discussion with us. I think that any South African family who are concerned about their future, who've got elderly parents, and they've always had this problem, hey, we can't leave South Africa because we can't leave mum and dad behind, they've now got an option. Because Uruguay is basically saying to people, look, bring the whole family over. And it doesn't matter if your parents are elderly. So this is really a very unique proposition for people. And I get so many people who email me and say, look, we're desperate to leave South Africa, but my parents won't get in because of their age. And that sort of situation. So what we're saying here is that Uruguay, that's not an issue. Am I correct, Gonzalo?
You're 100% correct, Scott. That's not an issue.
Okay, fantastic. Now, I'm going to start wrapping up soon because we've been going for nearly 2 hours. Colette, would you like to just tell the people listening your thoughts in closing?
Well, I can just encourage you, if you are thinking of leaving, that it's a very big step to take and it's very stressful. We found it so, but I sort of viewed it as if we're going on holiday. I didn't think too far in the future. although obviously that one has to know how you're going to support yourself, because you don't want to have a situation where you come in Uruguay and suddenly you're destitute. So one has to have some pre-planning. We didn't come and look at the country first. We relied on people's blogs on Facebook and videos that they took and things like that. And it's actually a very nice country, nicer than you can imagine. So you don't have to come and look to see if it's nice. It is nice. But the financial side of it can be an issue. And so a lot of people, for example, are working online over the internet or finding things like that. This TFL English teaching things that one can do over the internet as well. But it's definitely worthwhile. And for us, we thought we'd rather take a chance and leave and at least have a future instead of staying in a country where there definitely isn't a future.
Right.
It's not as difficult as what you think it would be.
Right. Now, I'm remiss because, Gonzalo, there's a question that I really need to cover before we wrap up. And that is when you go to Uruguay and you're looking at migrating there, what sort of careers are the most available in that country? You know, like IT, education, health, you know, just rattle off a few areas that you think are important. And Dean has asked, Dean has asked, do they have a big need for lifeguards? Because he's got 30 years experience.
Well, you can become a lifeguard. You just have to go through the test they do, and they only select the best ones. And he would probably qualify.
Okay.
And but they only work, lifeguards only get jobs in summer and the high season. They get jobs from December through April. Then they're kind of unemployed.
Yeah.
IT guys would make it very well. Education people in the education would easily find a job. And even those professional doctors, architects, and they could revalidate their title. They learn Spanish and they can easily get a job. There's demand for professional services in this country.
Right.
And I wouldn't say that the learning Spanish is easy, but it's not the most difficult language in the world, and the people can learn and then just blend in.
Right. Okay. All right. Prison wardens.
No, that's something you don't.
A letter asked that. All right. Look, guys, if you want to find out more information about careers in Uruguay, please just send Gonzalo an email and he will let you know. Okay, that's the best way of doing that. Otherwise, we're going to be here all night going through all the different careers. Now, Gonzalo, would you like to just make a comment to those listening and in wrapping up the discussion?
Sure. I didn't get to choose to be born in Uruguay, but if I had to choose, I would choose Uruguay. And I'm a father of 3 kids, and this is the place where I want to bring up my children, and I wouldn't change that. And to those South Africans who the idea of coming to Uruguay has crossed their mind, I would say that I would encourage them to come to Uruguay. They will feel at home. They can count on people like us who can provide reliable services and make things much easier for them. And Uruguay will welcome them, and they will feel at home. And so I would just give them positive thoughts about that idea and that project. And people should reach us, contact us, and we will be happy to assist them, provide advice, legal advice, tips, anything they might need when it comes to living in a new country.
Fantastic. Look, for everybody watching live now or those who watch this video later, Colette has given Gonzalo a ringing endorsement. She says he's a fantastic guy. He helped her family every step of the way in the process of getting residency in Uruguay. He knows what he's talking about. It's peanuts to actually get him to make an application for you. And the best thing to do is to just email him. The email address and the websites that he's got are directly below this video. Thank you, Colette, and thank you so much, Gonzalo, for being part of the show. It's been a pleasure having you on. And thank you all.
Thank you.
And thank you all on the side chat and those listening to participating as well. I'm going to wrap up this session in a second. And thank you to my moderators for the great work. Jaco, Glenn, Lisa, Shireen. Okay, now the question asks, what is best, ship your household goods or sell and buy new once there? That's a good question.
Very good question we didn't address. Through the benefit of residency, you're allowed to bring all your households free of duties. But of course, you have to pay for the shipping. You have to pay a bond because you're getting a container with your households free of taxes. So, and when you pay a bond according to the value you declare on the container, and when you become a permanent resident, customs gives you the money back.
Right.
So if you don't have expensive furniture or stuff and it doesn't have any sentimental value, I would just leave it behind and start over.
Yeah, a lot of the properties in this area are rented out with furniture, so you can easily
just move
a fresh place to rent.
Right. All right. Well, thank you all for participating, and those listening. I'm going to wrap up now and have a great evening, and please take care, especially if you're in South Africa. I know it's a torrid situation over there. And once again, just in conclusion, Gonzalo's email address is below this video, and so are his websites. So you can just contact him direct, and he'll chat to you. And we highly recommend him. Colette, as I said, can't sing his praises enough. He's a lovely guy, and he goes way beyond the extra mile. Alrighty, with that, I'm going to shut down the live stream. Take care, guys, and don't forget, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, we're going to be doing the huge food and feed delivery. It's over R1 million worth of food and feed that we're actually taking to a poor community in South Africa. And, for security reasons, I can't tell you the location at this stage. Take care, guys, and bye for now.